Okay, this is section 8.3. We are going to learn how to graph the standard form of quadratic equations, section 8.3, which is ax squared plus bx plus c. The next couple of sections we're going to graph two other forms, so you have to memorize them, okay, because each one's a little different. This one is called standard form. It's the most common, and there are three things that are super important. Actually, this gives you four, but you already know the first one. So if a is positive, a is greater than 0, it's positive. Which way is it facing? It's opened up. Okay, so if a is negative, less than 0, it faces down. Okay, this thing right here gives you the axis of symmetry as well as the x-coordinate of the vertex. There's the axis of symmetry and the x-coordinate of the vertex. The last one here is C. C is always the y-intercept, but it has to be in this form. Okay, let's start with the axis of symmetry and the vertex. The easiest thing to do is to write down what A, B, and C are. So what's A here? 2, good. What's B? 8, good. And what's C? -1. So that means that automatically, you automatically know what about this graph? The y-intercept, good. So the y-intercept is -1. So it's not the vertex, just where it's crossing the y, here at -1. Now A, is it positive or negative? Positive, so you already know that it's facing up. So now right away, just by understanding the parts of this equation, you already know two things about it. All right, so now we're going to do the axis symmetry. X equals, what's the formula?
Ax squared.
Nope, what's the formula for the axis symmetry in our last video? You should have written it down. It is? X equals what? Negative b over 2a. And the way that I'd like you to say it is the opposite of b, not negative b, the opposite of b. Because sometimes b is already negative, and you're going to forget to change it to the opposite. Okay, so the opposite of b is -8 over 2 times, what's a? Good, which is 2. So it's going to be -8 over 4, which makes it -2. So my axis of symmetry is x equals -2. I'm going to start to sketch this so I know axis of symmetry is the middle point of my parabola. Now take a look. That means it's going to be here on this side, and I already know this point. And let me show you how to find another point just from this information. Another point. Since I know this is one of the points, 0, -1, and since I know the axis of symmetry is where I fold it, so on each side it's matching. So if I were to fold it on this line, this point right here is going to match on the other side. Here's the easiest way to find it. I put my pencil here and I count until I get the axis of symmetry. So how many times am I going to jump to the left? 1, 2. So that means that I'm going to jump another 2 to the left. 1, 2. And there's another point. If you're on a graph, you can tell that this is going to be -4 and -1. Okay, so now I can kind of get an idea of what this is going to look like. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to find the vertex. Here's how you find the vertex. I already have the x-coordinate. So how do I find the y-coordinate? 3 famous words. What are we going to do? We're going to plug it in. Good. So 2x squared plus 8x minus 1. 2 times -2 squared plus 8 times -2 minus 1. 2 times +4 minus 16 minus 1. 8 minus 16 minus 1, oops, equals negative 8 minus 1, which equals negative 9. So there's my vertex, negative 9. So I'm at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right here. So now I'm going to do it in purple. I can kind of sketch. I'm going to round up my parabola. I don't know my x-intercepts yet, but that's a rough idea of what it looks like. Okay, so here's the second core concept of 8.3, and it's pretty straightforward if you understand it. All right, maximum value. Take a look. If your graph is facing down, now why would your graph be facing down? When a is less than 0, when it's negative. Very good. There is a maximum because this is the highest point of the graph, so it's a maximum. The minimum is the opposite. When your graph is facing up, which means a is positive, there is a minimum. So in parabolas, you cannot be both. It's either going to be a maximum or a minimum. You need to memorize it. You need to put it onto your cheat sheet cards for your quiz. It's pretty straightforward. And it kind of just makes sense. If the graph is going here, that is not the minimum, the lowest point. That is the maximum. If your graph is going up, that is not the maximum because there's another place above it. So this one's therefore the minimum. So we have a new function here, and we're going to decide if it's a minimum value or a maximum value. We found out that a, b, and c, those numbers, and we found out it's also a maximum since a is negative. Now to help me, because I made a mistake in my last video that I deleted, that it's a maximum, I'm going to draw myself a picture. So since I drew myself a picture, I now know that this is going to be a maximum value, which means it is going to be the highest point. And the highest point and the lowest point, but the highest point in this problem is always going to be the y, because the y-axis is what goes up and down. In order to find the y, we have to find, we have to find the x. And because you learned a new formula, how do we find the x? X equals opposite of b over 2a. Okay, so that means that this is positive 24, because it's the opposite of b, over 2 times negative 4. So it is 24 over negative 8, and it is negative 3. Now, is negative 3 my highest point?
No.
No, because it's the x. I don't want the x. I want the y. So how do I find the y?
Plug it in.
Plug it in. Y equals negative 4, negative 3 squared, minus 24 times negative 3 minus 19. So this is negative 4 times 9, which makes negative 36. This is going to be plus 72 minus 19, and that answer comes out to be someone have it? 17, very good. So my vertex is negative 3, 17. But that's not what it's asking you for. It is asking you for the value of the maximum. And the value of the maximum is my highest point, and my highest point is 17. So the two things that I box are your answers for this problem.